Well, here we are once again. It's Monday. It's 7 p.m. It's Let's Talk Radio with Robert Vaughn, Mike Shomo, and Verl Majid. We're glad you could join us this evening. We have a great show. Today, we're going to talk about Juneteenth and the nature and significance of it. And we'll try to answer some of the questions because I've been hearing a lot. I'm sure everybody's been hearing a lot of things. And we've, tried to research a little bit, and we want to present the truth from the fiction. So without further hesitation, Mike, you want to lead off and tell us what is this thing about Juneteenth? Why is it a holiday, and what's the nature of it?
Juneteenth is a celebration. It's a celebration, and I'm gonna give you that too, in a minute. But the first thing is that in January of 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And what it said is that all persons held as slaves are and hence therefore forward shall be free. It was 2 years later before they got the word in Texas. General Granger went down to Texas in Galveston, and he had a decree. It was called the General Order 3, and it stated. Let me read this: that it involves the absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property, former slaves, former masters, and the commencement therefore existing between the then becomes what they were saying is that it became a contract between employer as a slave owner, as an employer, and the slaves hired labor, meaning they had to get paid. They were no longer, free slavery. They called it, free labor, but it was done, to make, let the people say, oh, you want to stay on this plantation, you want to work, you're going to get paid. Okay. In Houston, the former slaves purchased land in 1872 to hold the annual Juneteenth celebration. Now, Juneteenth, they combined the name with the month June and the 19th of June. That's how it came up to Juneteenth.
So this wasn't something that just started.
No, as early as I could see, it was like I said, it was celebrations going on, and in Houston, it was the first time that that they had bought land and said they was going to have this celebration on land, which still happens today. It's the same land. It's called Emancipation Park. Okay. And they have this celebration. They have parades. Now it died down for a while in the 30s and the 40s and during the Depression and the world wars and stuff like that. But there was other things going on in America that then the African Americans took it back up in the 70s. That's when it started going, and it's been. I remember going down to Texas and spending time with my family, and that was a big celebration for them. I'm looking at them like, Juneteenth.
What is this?
Right, because they used to call it also, another name of it was Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, Second Independence Day, and Emancipation Day.
They also called the Last Freedom.
Right.
It's called the Last Freedom.
So the timeline was he signed Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. The Civil War broke out, right?
Yeah, it was ending then.
It ended in 1865, right? Or was that
something around there? Yeah.
Okay. I think it ended 60. So the slaves in Texas just were not told,
right,
that they were free for 2 years.
Yeah, but let me tell you this also, is that even the ones that knew, even the other states that knew it, when they were making deals with the landlord, because they didn't have any place to go. Okay. There's a poem, if you look at that on the internet, it's called Free at Last. And okay. It's a nice poem, and it takes you through what they did. They said some of them ran as far as they could run till they couldn't run no more. And then it talks about how they found a bush with a little cove in it to go to sleep because they had no place to go. Some of them stayed, and they said they didn't go as far as back to the shack where they were sleeping at.
They had never been on their own. They
didn't know where to go or how to go.
Okay.
So, and then there were some, how these people are, and I'm these Europeans, and I said, well, the people that wanted to leave, they shot and killed them. You think you're gonna be free? Yeah, I'm gonna free you, and killed them, the slaves, because they could no longer be slaves.
Okay.
Those are, I remember my grandmother telling me, and then the next offer was sharecropping.
Right.
Which was basically slavery, only what you got paid was what you grew.
It's kind of like $7.25 an hour, right? Is that
it was worse. It was worse than that. My mother and grandmother used to tell me about that,
Well, you could grow, but see, my grandmother, her father was a preacher, and she was telling me that they had been his grandfather, they were slaves, and they had been sharecropping since the Emancipation Proclamation. And he saved up money, they was because there was a lot of them, because that's what you had to have, a lot of babies to work the sharecropping, okay? And I never will forget, she had tears in her eyes because she said, like, nobody had asked her those things, and I took her back. But she said her father, they called him Big Ned. And he came in one day and said, hey, y'all, we're getting up out of here. I saved money, got some property, we're gonna be, and he was a minister. And she said, the overseers, the other people that work for the farm, the white folks that work for the farm, came and killed him. Right? Said, you're not going nowhere. He said, well, I'm gone. I got money to go. They shot and killed him and told him they couldn't, and sat there on the horses and stand up with guns and rifles. Said, nobody better not touch that body, and let the body rot in the sun until the sun went down. And they went on, and they could move the body. My grandmother was crying and stuff, and I was just but these,
one of the biggest problems slaves had, they didn't have any weapons, to fight back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Verl, to pick up on that a little bit.
No, I mean, that's a very interesting and compelling story, And some of the slaves I heard didn't even wait for that general to get here. They stood on the Confederate balcony and announced they had been freed. They say when they were freed initially, slaves acted all kind of ways. A lot of them were in disbelief and shock. Some danced in the street. Some got angry. The fact that they had been working for those 2.5 years and hadn't had a chance to, hadn't experienced their freedom. And like Mike was talking about the sharecropping, that was another thing. That was just slavery in another form. Because the money was so low. And my mother and grandmother told me about this. It was so low, brothers would pick cotton and have all these bills and sell them to white people. Basically, you could pay the people, but it was not nearly what they should have got or what white folks would have got,
But they didn't know what they should have got. That was, yeah.
That was a big part of it too. Didn't have the education,
Yeah. They didn't
So,
have the education, yeah.
But that's, I even see that nowadays, in a different form. I read something recently, and it was talking about a black woman had a nice house, affluent neighborhood, and she had got it appraised. And what she knew was way lower than what it should have been. So next thing, she got a white person to act as a straw seller, got it reappraised, and the money's like through the roof,
$400,000.
Yeah, I remember that. I read that same story.
But you see what's happening, some people just refuse to treat us right. And that's the reason I have a distrust, for certain segments of the population at different times. And, because I don't see a lot of change, I mean, like, just like, okay, we got this holiday, white people got the holiday. But the Japanese, they got a law saying you can't abuse the Japanese. You know what I'm saying? We want reparations. We want a check. We want some respect. A holiday is great. Okay, everybody's out there barbecuing and having fun. But then what about the next day?
Well, this is one of the things that Trump brought out during his administration and everything, is that white people still believe that we are 3/5 of a human being, and we are not
Right.
a total human being. And I don't care how you look at it, you know, or even
But not all white people. That's
we just saying, you know,
majority. Yeah.
But Robert, this is what he said. See, this is the point. That was the law at one time.
right.
That was
Yeah,
the law. You know,
When they talk about holding to the true values of the Constitution, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, because even with that, it was so discriminatory that's why they had to put the amendments in there.
Mhm.
You know, oh yeah, okay, we said this, but this is going to ratify that. This is going to change this. They're going to change that. But that's what the amendments are for.
Mike,
Right.
and that's another good point too. See, if we're all free and all equal, we don't need special laws just for black people.
Right.
You don't need amendments which can expire. Well,
right.
this provision is going to expire after a certain amount. Forget all that junk. There's
Well,
one law for everybody, you know.
Okay.
And if we don't have that, we're not free. We are still slaves.
Right.
Call it what you want.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know.
I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what led up to what happened in Greenwood, because I think that's relevant to Juneteenth. Would you guys agree?
It's all connected, definitely.
Yeah, it's all connected. There, and a lot of the blacks at the time you're speaking of were in open rebellion against the government. They had taken up arms. So they all didn't get shot and all didn't leave and get scared. A lot of them were fighting, you know.
Nat Turner.
Yeah, Nat Turner. Yeah. He,
Denmark Vesey. Yeah. David Walker's book, David Walker's Appeal. You could be killed for reading that book.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because you know what?
Mm-hmm.
There was another incident that is rarely talked about in this country that led to the Emancipation Proclamation, and that was the Gullah Wars down Louisiana, Florida, that area, that southern East Coast.
Yeah.
Those brothers were fighting tooth and nail to the point where they said, if we don't give them some freedom, they're gonna take it. But see, that's the difference. If we took our freedom, we'd be free men. But we are not free men, we are freed men. That means they can give us the amount and the type of freedom they want us to enjoy and experience.
And I think anytime you have, anytime a country is colonized and someone from outside the country comes in, you know, they usually, you know, the Holocaust, where a lot of people were killed, but there've been a lot of different Holocausts throughout history.
Right.
Look in the island of Tasmania, you know, the Australians have eradicated all the indigenous Tasmanians. I don't think there's any left. You know, they had a policy in Australia, was up until 1972, was called White Australia, where all the Aboriginal babies were taken from the parents and placed with white families, so they could get rid of all the Aborigines. Now, there's some that's still around, but not like it used to be. In America, you know, when they came to America, they kill all the Indians. You know, one of the reasons, George Washington was president is because he was a pretty good general, and he had kind of devised a way to kind of move westward. And
he had slaves.
And he had slaves, yeah. Now this is what
presidents had slaves.
Well, you know, most of the people who signed the Constitution were, you know, they were slave owners. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
And see, there was a process, just like, you know, when slavery was ending in 1830, you know, the Trail of Tears, they were taking all the land from the Indians, you know, in Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, and Missouri, because it was prime land for growing cotton.
Right.
So they were basically kill the Indians if they wouldn't move. They sent in the cavalry. They committed mass murder, and they just squatted on the land and just kind of divvied it up. You know,
well,
Supreme Court. This is interesting. The Supreme Court said that was wrong, but President Andrew Jackson said, "I won't enforce the law." He said, "I'm a proponent of Indian removal." You know, and he got behind what's called the Indian Removal Act, where it was legal to do that. You would remove the Indians and you would move them west of the Mississippi. So Oklahoma was not a state yet, was where a lot of Indians from the Trail of Tears landed.
Native
Now, that's what I
American.
want to add. There
Native
were a lot of,
American.
yeah, Native Americans. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Native Americans. Along with the Native Americans, there were a lot of Black people too.
Right.
And don't forget, a lot of Native Americans were black skinned.
Right.
Yeah, they were here.
Well,
They
when
had
the
been
whole
here.
tribe, you know, of the Blackfoot Indians, they were black.
Yeah.
Not just Blackfoot,
They
there
were
was
black.
Cree and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other tribes. You know, they give us this picture of this Indian white man made Indian. You know, like on the nickel and in movies and stuff like that. Some of them were black as me.
Yeah.
You know,
My point
like,
is this though.
like we talked a little bit
people,
about earlier, like Mike had
yeah.
brought up.
The
In
Black
Mexico,
people,
there was a group of black people that lived way before most of what you can think of now is Mexican, but even Spanish came. We called the Olmec. The Olmec were, like you say, broad nose, big lips, strong features, you know, kinky hair, and a lot of it came to light recently when during the excavation there was a farmer in Mexico, and he found a mound on his land. And he was about to blow it up. But when they brought the inspector out there, they started excavating. They found these large heads. There was plenty of them, you know.
Mhm.
And it was a site where another civilization, race civilization. And see, some people can whitewash some things, paintings and stuff like that, and writings, but you can't whitewash that big stone head. That thing was like big as a damn Escalade standing on its side. You know, it was huge.
So when the Native Americans and the Blacks, some of the Indians had slaves as well as some of the Blacks were slave owners. And then some of the Blacks had sort of, they were Native Americans too. They tried to separate them from being Native Americans, but they were Native Americans too. So they went to, the Indian Removal Act said that the government had the right to exchange land in Oklahoma for the land that they were taking in Mississippi and Alabama to grow cotton on. So everyone was moved to Oklahoma. Now at the time, Oklahoma wasn't a state. It was called the Indian Colonization Zone, is what it was called. Didn't become a state till 1907.
And Robert, just to make a point, put on a piece of land where nothing will grow.
Yeah, but listen to this though. But the Blacks that were there were the only Blacks in the country that the government gave 40 acres and a mule to. So because of that, they became quite prosperous. And then you had Greenwood, Oklahoma. Greenwood was a direct result of them, you know, using their 40 acres and a mule to actually make money. And you had Greenwood, Oklahoma. And also in Greenwood, Oklahoma, you know, some of the Blacks struck oil. You know, of course, most of them were cheated out of it and was taken. But, you know, Tulsa and Greenwood, there was like a big oil boom in Oklahoma. So it was a very prosperous area. And, you know, the Juneteenth celebration, you know, was really celebrated in Greenwood. Well, and a lot of people didn't like it because these Blacks had achieved so much success.
Well, you know, it was the same thing in, I think it was either South Carolina, North Carolina, where after the slaves were, you know, free and they were going to church, they were going to the white church, but they had to sit in the back. Okay. So it got to the point to where, you know, they were uncomfortable with the African Americans being in their church. So, you know, they want to put them out. So you got to figure that the African Americans or the newly freed slaves, they did all the work. They were carpenters and everything. So they built a church that was bigger and better than the white first church. That's when they came with the AME church, the American.
Yeah, they were the worker bees.
African American Episcopal, yeah.
Right.
So
they did. In fact, you know, I got that from the book that Elijah Muhammad's son wrote, Waters Dean Muhammad, and it said in there that they had built this church. It was beautiful because he was talking about the history of the AME church. And what it did is that the Caucasians were so upset, so mad, they burnt the church down to the ground. Told them that they couldn't, if they built another church, they was gonna kill them.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, you know, the jealousy. I mean, you know, you go in our neighborhoods, you see, everybody, you see Chinese, you see, and nobody gets messed with. They don't mess with you. You go into, you walk into a white neighborhood and man, it's like, hey, what that N-word doing here? Let's get him, let's get him, and, we don't do that. We want to live and let live. That's why I was so disappointed in people that were going around hurting these Asians.
Mhm.
It was Black people doing that. And I'm
Mhm.
saying, like, are y'all crazy?
Where'd you learn that behavior? Where'd you get
Hey,
that
well,
from?
we don't do that. We
Yeah,
don't do. And
yeah.
I was hurt behind that because I'm saying, is this
Mhm.
is this what our younger generation has come to?
Mhm.
You just don't know. They had to struggle like that. They put them in jail when World War II came along after they bombed Pearl Harbor. They put them in concentration camps
But that's the way divide
and
and
got
conquer.
reparations. They
Yeah.
got reparations.
Yeah, that's the way divide and conquers always work.
Yeah.
They play one group off against the other. That's like a lot of a political party now plays the working class whites off against the working class blacks because they never have to worry about them getting together, forming a union, and telling hammers on them because they and that's been something that's been done throughout history, man. They play off the blacks against the Asians. Like there's a big ruckus now about the light skinned Latinas. This movie that the Hamilton guy did. They said there weren't enough Afro Latinas in the movie, so now they're kind of like at each other. So and it's like the same old game. It's like people should be hip to it by now.
Right.
Playing one group off against the other. But in Oklahoma, that and the reason they celebrated Juneteenth because a lot of people in Oklahoma had come from Texas, so they kind of brought their culture with them to Greenwood, and then you had these other blacks, but it was a very prosperous community, and it's not the first time they've destroyed a community, and part of the reason was because they didn't, after the so-called attack was over, they came back the next morning with reinforcements from the U.S. Army. And they went through, systematically burned every building down.
The ones that weren't already burned down.
Yeah,
The other thing that's interesting about Greenwood, and I think ties into this, is the
Mhm.
fact that after that community was destroyed in Oklahoma, it was like 26 other very prosperous communities around the country.
Yeah.
All of them got destroyed as well,
They did the same thing in Detroit and Black Bottom. What they did then, though, what they did there is they did in a lot of cities is they brought a freeway through where the black neighborhood was. Because I remember before the freeway came through in Detroit, Grand River, West Grand Boulevard, in that area, there were a number of black, I had an uncle, he worked at Chrysler. He had taught himself, he finished 4th grade, he had studied electronics, he had a TV and radio repair shop, he had a cleaners and had 2 apartment buildings. And this was a guy that just learned how to read a few years before, but he knew that's if he wanted to, get ahead, he was going to have to do it himself. So there was a vibrant black community, and then there was a freeway brought through for urban renewal or black removal, take your pick. And it happened in a lot of cities. Mike, you had a point to make?
Yeah. What I want to say, I read a thing that Texas Democrat Representative Shirley Jackson Lee, she's in Texas. She said Juneteenth is a day of celebration when families gather to acknowledge that what was once wrong can be fixed.
Okay.
And then they said it was another lady, her name was Marcia Chatelain, and she's a professor of history and African studies at Georgetown University. She says it's a connection of the struggle, a commemoration of the struggle against slavery and a celebration of freedom. That's what.
But you know what? In addition to that, and we need all that too, and I agree with everything you're saying. But we got to have a restore act. That's why leadership and voting is so important. But we got to restore these communities. In Cleveland, the Muslims had a community on Superior, like 125th,
right,
124th, that area.
Grew up
10 or 11 businesses, maybe 15 businesses. Restaurant, cleaner, supermarket, haberdashery, knickknacks, whatever you want. Winston Willis had one on 150th, 107th and Euclid, you know.
Right.
But these cities find a way to come in there and destroy it. And I mean, it's not just one thing they do. I mean, they start drying up jobs and what have you. So, you know, they start. What are you gonna say, Mike?
One of the things about that is that our leaders either, you know, consciously or unconsciously have sold us out. You know, they'll bring like Giant Eagle in and say, okay, you hire so many people. That's good to get the jobs. But then the small businesses that have been there for years, they suffer, they're gone.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that generational wealth is also gone.
Right.
They get people who would have taught business to their young folks and left them a business when they died. You know, you can't leave somebody a job, but you can leave them a business that could go on for generations. You know,
the importance of owning land, it can't be overemphasized.
Right.
Whether it's in the city or whether it's, you know, on farmland, whether it's in the country, because when you own land, then you actually own something, and
you own a piece of the rock.
Come in. Pardon me?
You own a piece of the rock.
Yeah, you own a piece of the rock, and somebody can't come in and put you out. But,
well,
I think
these are the things that I'm saying. You know, I'm campaigning to be councilman in Ward 4, and these are the things that, you know, I'm saying, because, you know, like on my street, we got, you know, 27 vacant lots, and you know, these people, what's going on is that it's, you know, Ward 4 is basically the heart of the greater Cleveland area. We 10, 15 minutes from every place, from the west side, out Euclid, Shaker Heights, you know, and, you know, pretty soon they're going to come in here with the gentrification. Okay, now the banks, you know, they still redlining, and they still not giving people loans to fix up their house, but yet and still they'll give the developers money and everything to come in and build houses that the people that's residents around can't even afford. You know, $300,000-$400,000 homes. You know, with the gentrification and stuff. You know, to attract you know, high income people.
Yeah, but I think one of I'm not sure which law in Guzasaba this is, but collective economics is so important when you're talking about building a community.
Right.
You know, and I think that it would behoove Black people or any people to try to work together. You know, I had a friend I worked with when I was at when I was working in the industry. I had a friend he was from Germany. 6 of them came over, and they were all, you know, they were stonemasons and stuff, but they worked at GM because they needed benefits and they had families and kids. And so the first year they came over, they all saved their money, and they lived in one house, 6 families.
Live together. So each one got a house.
Yeah, they built a house in a year and a half. So the one family moved out, and then they built another house. And in, I think, 8 years, everybody had their own house that was built and paid for.
And you know what, Robert?
Because they could work, they could cooperate and work together.
Robert, you know what also? The Mexicans and the Haitians do that too.
Yeah. But the Mexicans
like trained out of us, even though we
can I say this?
Elijah said it.
But
what go you say, Mike? Go ahead.
I said everybody but us. But see,
yeah, and you know what?
When my grandfather, when he moved up here from Alabama, and you know, he sent for the family, they brought him up, you know, and then other families came up and stayed with us. We don't tell who was staying in our house for a while until they got on their feet and got them a house and everything. But we must have had the relatives, about 7, 8 families that came up to live with us for short periods of time, you know, a year or two and stuff like that, till they got on their feet and got a job, did what they had to do.
That was my family too, yeah. Yeah, we had my mother's people from Alabama, yeah.
But see, this is what I'm saying. We have a history of this. You know, why aren't we doing this? You know.
But you know what, Mike, this is the thing. In addition to the other things going, we got to really re-educate folks, you know, from the ground up, because just like you were saying, these banks are still redlining. But why do we put our money in them?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
In Minneapolis, in Minnesota.
Why do our churches all over the city, the state, country, continue to give money to folks who will not reciprocate it and invest in us? Ask yourself that question. I'll wait.
There's a Black, I'm not sure if it's Ethiopian, that lives in Minnesota, Minneapolis, where they don't have to go to a bank now to buy a house.
Minnesota.
Yeah, they have cooperative economics, and it's what they're from Eastern Africa. I'm not sure if it's Ethiopia, one of the countries. Name some other countries there. It's Ethiopia, it's Kenya. It's one of the groups from one of the countries have pooled their resources now where you don't have to go to a bank to buy a house. You just borrow money from them and you just pay them back.
Right.
You know, that's how actually Muslim banks work too. You know, there's a little fee at the beginning, and then they basically just divide up what you owe in the payment. And you pay it back because interest is like usury. That's like forbidden. It's like haram in Islam. So there's some Muslim banks like that too. But we got to connect the dots. You know, I'm happy for Juneteenth. I'm happy that people are becoming more conscious. We must know this history. If we fail to learn it, then we're bound to repeat it. However, it's a flashpoint. What do we do now?
Well, you know, I was asked, they did an interview from the East Side.
The Somalians, that's what it is.
Right. Yeah, they're Somalians. They're up in Minnesota. There's a whole group of them. I know.
Yeah. And you can go and borrow money from the Somalians, and you don't have to go to a bank.
Right. Yeah. But I was interviewed by the East Side News last week, and we were talking about he brought the thing about red line and the banks not loaning us money, to fix up the houses in this area. And I said, so why are we putting our money there? He said, what do you suggest? I said, get them out of here. Bring another bank. They're not the only gangs in town.
No, create a bank, Mike. Our kids have went to college.
Right.
They know finance and stuff.
Hey, but see, this is the thing. Whether I make a bank or anybody make a bank, why are we putting money in a bank that's denying us loans, that's denying us respect, just taking our money, just holding it? Because see, they get money for holding money.
No, Mike, you know what a bank can do? For every dollar that they take in, they can lend out $10. Now just think about that. The Security and Exchange Commission say you can lend out $10. So they're lending out money they don't even have. It's just a promise.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they make money off of interest when people start paying interest on that fiat money they borrowed.
A lot of people are understanding that now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people now, they have these online bankings and stuff like that, that they're not even here. But to bring a bank in here, it wouldn't be much to bring another bank in here.
But you know what? That's why banks hate decentralized finance and cryptocurrency. Because see, with decentralized finance, you don't really need a bank.
Right.
It takes the middleman, it takes the bank out of the picture. You can do the same thing. You can invest your money the way you want to invest it.
Well, you know what, Robert?
Go ahead.
Back in the day, like when Winston was a young guy coming up, getting started, Winston Willis, I remember him talking about trying to get things going, and needing financing. And he went to the numbers man, the same as the editor of the Call-in Post, W.O. Walker.
Well,
they went to Bill Seawright.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. Seawright, Don King, Virgil Ogletree.
Yeah, Virgil.
A lot of these guys with money, it's a whole lot of kids from Shaker that went to college off of that numbers money.
Oh, without question.
Mike, you know what I'm talking about.
I was one of them.
If your kid need to go to college, you didn't have the money. You went to Don King and said, Don King.
But see, this is the thing.
That's the
thing you got to understand is that the numbers men that y'all are talking about, they were bankers.
That was the bank.
That was the bank.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what? And I asked Winston once, how did that work? He said there was a place in the afternoon, late afternoon, they would meet. They'd be sitting around and sipping coffee, tea, or something, drinking something else. And they say if a guy had an idea, he'd go make a presentation to him. They talk to each other, and what do you think? Sounds all right, And they'd either finance or they wouldn't, Yeah, all them guys would come to Bill C right now because when white folks wouldn't lend us some money, they said we're gonna create our own economy.
But they didn't have.
When the Ohio lottery came out, it killed the numbers business. It also killed our economy. It killed housing, investment in businesses, sending kids to college, the whole 9 yards.
Well, they didn't.
You would be surprised at the amount of money that kept the businesses going in the black community.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Be
yeah,
surprised.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was
Most of the businesses and I grew up in Detroit. I know my uncle was the first CPA in Detroit, and I know what went on. A lot of those churches that got built, a lot of those businesses, the banks would not loan black people money.
Right.
So you'd have to go to the blacks that had money, and they would loan it to you. And sometimes they wouldn't even charge you interest. They just say, if it was,
now see, that was cooperative economics,
Yeah,
and it was truthfully in everybody's interest. Everybody in church playing a number, they feed the numbers, man. He got money, he can invest in this and that and the other, So even there's a guy used to be in charge of the Cleveland Foundation. I won't mention his name, but he's big, high-powered black guy now. But his dad was a numbers man, and through the money they got and invested, he raised, he rose to where he is,
Yeah.
Mickey McBride was a numbers man. Mickey he on Yellow Cab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They got cash money every day. But see, let me tell you something. It was more intricate. It was more intricate than people think it is. Like, well, I'm just booking the numbers. No, because see, you had to have a community connection. And I'm gonna tell you why. It's not the money that you have to book the numbers, to be a banker, is how much money you can get when the number break bad.
Mm-hmm.
We knew people that owned trucking companies that were African American. You knew people had stores. You knew people had franchise, had multi-unit restaurants like Ashley. Ashley Shrimp Boat and different. They borrowed money from each other.
And how many people had gas stations in this town? How many black gas stations were there in the 60s and 70s? And now there's I think 3 or 3.
But I think what happened, part of what was happening is that, a lot of the younger blacks, I know when I came up, it was, the thing was, you go to school, you get a good job, you save your money, and then you open a business.
Right.
Where it should have been, maybe you open a business after you get some money, then you go to school. Sure. But I think what happened is we had the opportunity when we came along to go to school. And we didn't have the opportunity, 20, 30 years earlier. A lot of blacks didn't have the opportunity. So we took advantage of it, and a lot of people that went into business, we might have ended up working for them at some point, So I think, being an entrepreneur is like in certain cultures, it's frowned upon to work for somebody, and it's you're encouraged to be
like in Asian community. They say in Hong Kong, they say in the Asians, 1 out of every 10 Asians has a business. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of folks, Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that killed a lot of black businesses here, mm-hmm. We got comfortable, with the the young people, the parents have put this big business. Young people get that BMW and they got the tennis racket in the back seat and they're going to parties. They don't want to really put in the work. You got to put in the work too.
Right.
And when you get tired of working, you got to make sure the next generation is in a position. Because I think of Will's Funeral Home, and everybody knows Will in Cleveland, knew Will's Funeral Home, that big family. Mm-hmm. And Will's was so big, that was the place that if you died or get buried and prepared, that was the place everybody wanted to go. And they were so big that after a while, 155th and near Woodland, and they went out to Mount Pleasant, 147th and Harvard, and this big, beautiful place, But the kids do not want to put in the work and keep it going.
Right.
Well, you know why? Because the kids, they grew up. We went to school with a lot of them.
Yeah, we went to school with a lot of them at Shaker.
They grew up and they was driving brand new, Mustang Mach 1s to school, and when it was in 9th grade, and convertible Camaro Zs, and they grew up and they had a lot of money, but they didn't have the connection with how that money was made, and they didn't have a connection with how to continue it, because the parents really gave them everything. The parents gave them too much, to be honest.
See, and that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. When we were growing up, we saw something, we wanted it. Our mind had to figure out a way. How many lawns do I mow? How many driveways do I? But
you know what the difference was? Our parents made us work, even though they could have afforded to give us some things.
Right.
Well, you know what?
They made us work.
Yeah. They always made us work, and some things they said, you want it, Work for it. Start saving.
Work for it, yeah.
Get you a jar. Get your own mayonnaise jar and just start putting money in. You know, if you don't start a bank account.
Let me tell you something. I do that to this day. I got a big old jar full of monies and rolls of quarters. You know, the big water jug. I just throw change in there. You know, and when I would get paid, I'd get 2 rolls of quarters and throw in there. Man, I had so many quarters you couldn't even move the jar.
That's important too. And you know what? That way you're seeing your money grow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, my mother used to take, when I made money, I would have to turn it over to her, and she would bank it, and she would give me what was left, you know, and I didn't notice, but she saved it. And then when I went to college, she said, okay, if you get a scholarship, an academic scholarship, you can have this money. So I ended up having enough money to buy me a car when I got out of college. But I didn't know, but she was saving it for me. She wasn't, I thought she was just charging me rent or something. But she was saving it for me when I got out of college.
Charged me rent.
Yeah. When I got out of college, she gave me all the money back, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a pretty good deal, you know. But, you know, I think, you know, what that taught me was that, you know, money is a precious commodity. And I think you can't give kids too much, man. You really can't. I know sometimes I wanted to do things for my kids, you know, and I wouldn't do it even though I could have. Like my daughter played basketball, and she couldn't just have the regular Nike shoes. They had to be Nike Air Jordan Jumpman's 23. So I said, well, I'll give you $25 on them or $30 on them, and you're gonna make the rest. And she would go babysit, and she had 5 people on the street. She would water their flowers. And when she made her 80 or 90 bucks, and she came and bought the shoes. But after a while, after she did it a couple of times, she said, Daddy, you know what? Those shoes aren't worth $150. That's stupid, man.
They realize that when they're paying for it.
Yeah, I just get me some Reeboks. She said, I'll just get some regular Reeboks.
You know, it's like kids, they say they want a cell phone. Okay, get your cell phone. No, I want the iPhone 12.
Yeah.
Phone.
But see, that's the way they were raised, and that's why you have them now.
There's a lady across the street from me. You know, she part of our family. We cook dinner. We send her a plate and everything because she don't cook. She gets her grandkids, because the little boy, he was about like 7 years old, and I was watching my phone. I was doing something on my phone. I got like an iPhone 2.5 or something like that. He said, I got an iPhone 12, and I was just like. I said, can you make a call with it? Yeah, I can make a call with mine. I said, can you take pictures with it? Yeah, I can take pictures with mine. So what does yours do that mine don't do? I said, I know there's some things that it does, but you don't know.
Right. And I know everybody is wondering what this has to do with Juneteenth. And I'm going to let Verl answer that. Verl?
You know, like I was saying earlier, like Robert pointed out, Juneteenth is a flashpoint. And see, we must know that history. You know, right now in the schools, we see there's an effort to even whitewash slavery. They don't want to say slaves. They want to say, who was that black elected official? What's his name? The HUD guy, Mike, the HUD guy.
Ben.
Oh, Ben Carson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was saying, like, wants to make it like on vacation or something, where slavery is voluntary, you know.
Right.
And we got to know this ugly history and the people we dealt with, what they put us through and are continuing to put us through, how it affects us and our future generations now, what we can do about it and what we can do to change it.
Well, see, it's a struggle, and a lot of people throughout history have struggled. And I think you have to, you know, like they say, the struggle is real, and you got to keep it going, man. I mean, look at, you know, I got a Jewish friend, and I talked to his grandfather before he passed away about 3 years ago. And he was telling me, he said, man, he said, the reason we kept all our money in gold and diamonds, he says, because you never knew when you had to wake up in the middle of the night and you just might have to leave everything.
Right.
Right.
You know, he said, we get chased out of here. He said, then they come and chase us out of there. And that's why, you know, now that they have a home in Israel, that's why they're so adamant about staying there, man.
Well, wait a minute, hold up. Time out. They don't have a home in Israel. They are in occupied Palestine.
Right.
Well, let me tell you this too. 2,000 years ago, it wasn't Palestine. Now check that out. It was
Palestinian
Israel
people have
2,000
always
years ago. That Palestine hasn't always been there. It's kind of switched back and forth, and
Right.
and they, for some reason, could never figure out how to get along. But it was Palestine for a long time. Before that, it was Israel. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of going back and forth.
They all, I mean,
Mhm.
Christians, Muslims, Armenians, you know, everybody used to have their little area, you know,
Mhm.
and they
Right.
knew their area. But
Right.
now, I mean, the United Nations and everybody,
Mhm.
not just the Muslim countries, everybody says you're on Palestinian land. Even Jews in New York, these rabbis are coming out.
Mhm.
You're
Right.
you're occupying Palestinian land, you know.
Right.
Let me
And if
say
it wasn't for the
something on that.
United
Let me
States,
tell you something on that.
it,
Let me tell you
But
something.
that's going to take a few shows to get into that. So
Yeah, but I just want to say this. I just want to end this like this. Like, look here. It ain't gonna be no land in a minute. You seen the territory? They're just blowing up everything.
yeah.
They
You know, but
they
see,
made more on both sides. They done
True,
made
that's
more
true.
refugees and all that stuff, and they really just need to quit it.
But all the land, every time there's a war throughout history, all the land, the boundaries of land have changed. You know, one thing that happens is you can change the boundaries of the land, but you can't change the culture of the people that are there.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that's like in you know, you talk about in Iraq, you know, the Kuwait, after World War II, Kuwait was part of Iraq. And, you know, the British and the Marshall Plan, they said,
Yeah.
we're going to cut off this little part of
yeah, they just take a
Iraq
pin,
with all this
on the
oil.
map, just make a
Yeah.
line.
Yeah,
and
we're going to
create a new
call it,
country.
we're going to call it Kuwait. And you guys have to promise that you send all your money to London and you'll let BP come in and do all your oil business. And they said, okay.
Yeah.
So they said,
And
we're
you-
going to create a country. That's the same way Israel was created in the early 40s. Israel was created through the war of, when was it? 48? I think it was the
Right.
war in 48.
But you know what? It was in 1947, you know, when they decided to put their little flag up and says Israel. But at the time, the map was, imagine a huge green map, Palestine. It says Palestine,
Mhm.
and a little dot that says Israel.
Mhm.
Now we've got this huge Israel and Palestinians, the little dot. You know, Palestine's a little dot. You know.
Well, how is that so much different than what the English and French and the Spanish and everybody else did?
It's not different. They're doing the same thing. You know, they're doing the
At
same
one
thing.
time, and you know, and if you want to go back, this kind of relates to Juneteenth. But at one time, if you go back 5, 6, 7,000 years, Africa had pretty much colonized the world. That's why you see traces of Black people all over the world.
Oh yeah, and that pretty much they
Including
had. You know,
Japan and China, South America. You know, you talk about
Everywhere.
the old, yeah, Africa, and after Africa, then the Mongols or the Chinese had colonized Europe and much of the world.
well, you know, then the Moors ran for the last 1,000 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Controlled Europe. You know,
You got to
and it's-
remember, they wanted to, you know, to keep the dark skinned people in China. They wanted to keep them away. So what did they do? They built the Great China Wall.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they
That'll keep
did.
you
But see, there's a reason. There's a reason
Right.
why there's such a, I guess, an effort to keep African people down, and that's why they split up Africa, because the powers to be knew that if Africa ever united as a country, could you imagine, you know, Egypt, South Africa, Libya, Nigeria, all being in the same country?
yeah, that's what Gaddafi was trying to do.
Could you imagine them all being in one country? I mean, it's crazy, man. You know, the size of Africa is probably, you could probably fit 4 United States of America in Africa, the continent of Africa.
Yeah,
You know, the size, and not even to mention the natural resources. But that's why so that's why Africa was divvied up along with Kuwait being carved out. You know, and this has been it's been going on since the beginning of time. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the solution is.
well, you know what? I think that in the principles of Kwanzaa, you know, the collective economics, you know, cooperation. Black people got to work together for our survival. You know, not just the problem. In order for us to survive, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And
That's
in
true.
order for us to celebrate Juneteenth,
You got this dangle concept. You know what the dangle concept is, don't you? That means
I saw the movie.
whenever something is going, they dangle a couple of dollars or a little
Oh,
trinket,
that, yeah.
and you got people that are turn on you. That's the whole
You
thing.
will, you will.
Well, you know,
What-
and see, that's important, Mike. We got to show people that some things are more important than money. You know, money cannot be our God. You know, it's got to be
Mhm,
God. We believe in guiding principles,
mhm.
and we just can't, you know, sell it like
But
that.
see, money is never important to anybody until you don't have any.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know what? You know what? Well, Robert, you know what?
That changes your outlook when you
Well, just think of it like this. What is a few pennies when it's your salvation?
yeah, you're right.
You know
I
what I'm
agree.
saying?
I agree. I agree.
Even the Quran says, they said, in the end, you know, all that money you hoarded, that'll be like a weight around your neck as you're thrown into the ocean. You know,
Mhm.
that money got to be put back into the community and reinvested. You
It's
know,
got to be, yeah.
because
That's,
I mean,
I read a
otherwise you
book.
got that rusted Mercedes in the garage, and all your money that went flat. You know, but the kids aren't left with anything.
Yeah. But, you know, just briefly kind of looping back around to Juneteenth, you know, it's a celebration. And I think one thing we learned throughout history is that in order to have any sort of political power, anything, you have to own some land, you know, and that's why the Native Americans, I mean, they got a pretty raw deal too, man. They took all the land, man. They
I
basically
always say,
all the land.
y'all think we be treated bad. You see how they do the Native Americans.
Yeah, I'm saying this
I
has
mean,
been
they
going
live
on.
like they
Our-
live in shacks and
our
teepees
disagreement
on the
Yeah.
reservation. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Our
really.
disagreement
I mean,
went on longer than the Holocaust and what the Native Americans went through, and we are among those Native Americans too.
yeah.
I'm not taking anything.
Let me tell you why they punishing them, because they fought back.
Mhm.
They refused to be slaves. They fought back. And they still being penalized for that today, because they
But
would fought. Believe me, they tried to make slaves out of them.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna give the Native Americans credit.
Oh
Some
yeah,
of them
you
had
have
sense
to.
enough to fight, and they got casinos now, and some of that money is coming back into their communities. You know,
But you know why? A lot of the reason is because they practice cooperative economics too.
they got there to see. But that's the thing. And this is what hurt us about these schools.
They got
got a
different
shared
politics.
They got a shared language, history, and culture, and they can still speak. They remember that history, and they still speak their language. You know, and they are together. You know,
Mhm.
but that shared experience they went through.
And they value their elders.
Yeah, they
Right.
do. They respect their elders. Yeah, that's
And
true.
Mike, you know what? This is the good thing about you running for council for Ward 4. This is a unique opportunity, man. Like those buildings on Buckeye that need to be revitalized. We got to get some investment here. We got to create what we've been talking about. Our new Black economic districts. You know, we got Little Italy, we got Chinatown, we got Little Havana, all these other little places. But where's our Black business district? Our Black village,
I talk about that when I'm speaking to people. I talk about, because number one, I say actually Buckeye should mirror Larchmere or better, you know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
you know, my thing is now I say, okay, we want to do this, but I want to guarantee or the people to say, we bring businesses in here that we need. Okay, not to just have a shop that somebody just has something, but are you going to patronize this business? I got people lined up talking to me saying that they want to be part of the resurrection of Ward 4. I got people calling me, I want to be in that business. I seen a business spot up there. Number one, you know, they haven't torn them buildings down because somebody owns them buildings.
And it's paying the taxes.
You know, yeah, and the thing is that, and so somebody say, well, you know, that's going to be that's going to, you know, they're going to stop you from doing that. I said, no, there's a thing called eminent domain, and if we can't give them a fair price for their property or whatever, you know, or pay their taxes or whatever, we just got to steamroll them. That's all. I mean, because there's laws that say, you know, it's a blighted area. Ward 4 is a blighted area. I don't care what nobody. It's a blighted area, but it's at a point that it can be fixed. But you'll have people that are selfish and say, "Oh no, we're not going to do this." And those people,
see, that's where land ownership comes in, I think.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And the thing is, the people that own them buildings and stuff, they're sitting around. They know it's going to be. They know development is coming in there sooner or later, because, like I said, it's in the heart of the greater Cleveland area. You know, you can look at the map and say, you know, Ward 4 is right in the middle of there. So therefore, you look at it and say, they just sitting on it.
Mhm.
But they say, okay, you
Well,
want to sit on it?
you
And they
had a
say, well,
Mount, yeah, you had a Mount Pleasant Development Corporation,
you got a
that,
Buckeye Development Corporation,
Buckeye Development Corporation.
but they're all in
And
cahoots with everybody else because
yeah,
see,
yeah.
I'm gonna tell you about these
Mhm.
organizations here. You
Okay.
got a couple of them, Reclaim, Award for the people sit, they know what's going on. They're sitting around to make money on this stuff.
Mhm.
They ain't
Right,
thinking
right.
about the people.
You know, that's one thing they do. They
That's
don't.
why there's 20 people running because they have encouraged people to run so that their candidate can get in. To draw, they want to draw votes from other people. So because they running, they act like they don't. I mean, they had a thing where we had to compete for $1,000. I didn't even get into that because I'm saying like,
That's a
already
joke.
know they got their own candidate. Get that $1,000 to that candidate that y'all running. Come on, y'all.
Yeah, that's like fighting over peanuts,
Right.
But I think as
they know what's going on. They know it's going to be some gentrification here. We're trying to stop that. We're trying to get it. We're trying to build homes that are affordable. I'm talking about low income. I'm talking about people making $35,000, $40,000 a year because there's a lot of them.
Well, I think one of the things that differentiates Ward 4 from the way it used to be and the way it is now, at one time there were a lot of jobs for small businesses.
Right.
And I think small business would definitely have to lead the resurrection.
Right. Exactly. But I'm just saying it's got to be done. It's got to be, yeah, we can say, yeah, we need businesses, we need this, but it's got to be done tactfully.
You didn't have to say we need, you have to say, well, let's pool our resources.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Let's see what the people,
let's purchase this piece of property and develop it, because when you have small businesses, that kind of brings up the whole neighborhood, because the more small businesses you have, you'll have better police protection,
exactly,
and you'll have more people moving in, and then all you really have to deal with are the schools,
well, with the higher tax, like I said, when I want to build these 270 homes, that's $1 million a year in tax revenue that comes on.
Right,
and
right.
The way that I want it done is that we training people to do this stuff, the young people or whoever wants to do this. Then the next 4 years we'll build 500 and something houses because we'll have the crew to actually do that.
Right.
See,
this is one of the things that Juneteenth leads to.
Right.
People being independent, making decisions for themselves, and I think property ownership is a key pillar. I think property ownership, I think, leadership, which hopefully you'll provide. Well, I'm sure you will. You'll provide leadership, and there has to be, some sort of, has to be done in conjunction with small business.
Exactly.
Or big business, if they want to play ball.
Right.
Yeah.
But it takes somebody who cares and know how to get the job done.
Right.
See, the thing is that people say, well, you're a politician and this is a politician. Say, but look. This water has been mismanaged. You need a manager.
Mm-hmm.
You need a manager.
Your specialty, Mike.
Yeah. That's kind of like what you do, man.
Right.
And then all your life is managed people and projects, so.
Right. And I'm just saying it don't take much because, you get your volunteer, you get your people, because see, management means getting things done through other people. Mm-hmm. So you have to have other people to help you that's doing this. And these, because the organizations around here, they solicit the grants to get grants. But what's the first part of the grants? To get the administration paid. Mm-hmm. Okay. They got to keep themselves going by getting money from these grants and stuff to pay their staff. Then they go out.
Get that team, yeah.
But that's the thing. The volunteers and getting people to come in, because we got a couple of millionaires in this area, or that came out. Take Terry Rozier. He had award for. Mm-hmm. He out of the Mount Pleasant area.
Yeah, you got people. You got
a lot of athletes that came. You got attorneys that's making a lot of money that came out of here.
Yeah.
You got regular people making $100,000, $200,000.
But I think that one of the problems is that you look like off, in the Huff area, a lot of people that left came back and built homes.
Right.
And I think that's something could maybe be replicated in Ward 4.
Bobby, how much the average person working on the line at General Motors made a year?
At least 80
with overtime,
Probably 100, 110.
120, 125.
Yeah.
When I was, you was there I was there the same time you was there.
Mhm.
And doing when they came out with the W-2s and stuff, they walk around and say, hey, how much did you break? You break 150.
The thing used to be, yeah. So
they make $150,000 a year, 80,000. You had people that clean 3-4 bathrooms that made 100,000.
You had guys out there.
They couldn't make no
making
less. They couldn't make no less than the people that worked on the line.
Yeah, and I liked it because wherever the top guy made, I got 10% over him.
Yeah.
Those were the good old days. That's where Mike and I ran into each other, bro. Yeah.
Again, we went to high school together.
Again, yeah, we went to high school. We kind of
Hey, Bobby, where you hit? What you doing?
And Mike was in charge of all the plant, like keeping the plant together and stuff. And I had a couple of departments that needed some work done. And he said, well, I'll put you on a list. I said, put me on a list. I said, man, we went to high school together. I said, you better get in my department tomorrow. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But then I told him, I said, it's the top of the list, man. Go on with yourself.
Top of the list, yeah.
But see, these Juneteenth celebrations,
yeah,
we have to celebrate these things and the accomplishments that our people have made since slavery. I mean, we've come away with all the obstacles and stuff, and we've had some hell of obstacles.
Right.
And I'm saying we are a great people. We are a great people.
But I think we need to move past celebrations.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Did you agree, Merle, to more concrete?
No.
Absolutely.
When I say celebrate, I mean understanding where we were at.
Where we're at,
and how we need to get to where we need to get to.
Yeah, we got it.
Because that's a big thing. I told somebody in running, I said, look, I just want to do 2 times. I want to put the train has derailed. I just want to put it on the track and send it into the future. That's all I want.
That's what it's about, Juneteenth has got to simply be that flashpoint. The fuse is lit now. Now what do we do with this freedom?
Right.
What do we do with this opportunity?
And I think one thing
in this moment.
Yeah, one thing that Juneteenth sort of brings to mind with me is that we have to, when you have some success, you have to reach back and pull somebody else along.
Right.
That's key.
Yeah, you have to reach back and you got to pull other people along.
You got to clone yourself to make sure.
Hey, I preach that all the time. My daughter,
yeah,
she became a doctor. Before she became a doctor, when she first entered college, I said, look, I want you to make me a promise. You be a doctor. I want you to be the best doctor you can be, but I want you to bring up at least 5 people under you, and mentor them. And she's done about 10, 15.
Sam Miller, you know who Sam Miller is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mike White.
Sam Miller has sent some Black people I know to college and law school, and he requires that you send 2 people to school.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I know a couple of attorneys. I know a couple of attorneys who've actually done that. He paid there. He said, "I'll pay your way." He said, "But I want you to get 2 people," and he's Jewish.
I was at Richmond Road Hospital, and an emergency doctor. He was a young guy, and we were talking. We were around the same age at that time, and I told him. He says, "My wife want a baby. I ain't got time for no baby and stuff. Man, I don't want no children." I said, "Man, it's your duty to have children." I said, "You should have children, and they should be no less than a doctor. You a doctor, you bring them up and die. That's the only way our people can survive."
Yeah.
So
plus, when you get old, who's gonna take care of you, man?
Right. So about 3 months later, he said, "Man, my wife is a month pregnant." And I said, "Okay, man, raise that child, whether he be a doctor or not." But that's where you go at to be for that person to be a doctor, because we have to. I mean, you see, I've sent videos of me working with my grandson, showing them how to hang drywall. One is 7, one is 14. 8-year-old, he 8 now. 8-year-old can hang drywall. He can cut it, put it up, and tape it off. I mean, he's 7 years old.
Yeah, that's good. He'll be a master when he's 20.
That's good. Yeah. So that's good, man. Yeah, that's good. And I think one of the things that happened, why I think Black people haven't moved forward even more, is because the leadership didn't train the next generation.
Right. that's all I'm
You know what I'm
saying. I'm
saying?
not
We've
trying to
had
get
some
the pat
great
on the
leaders,
back
and then
raising
it's
the grandkids,
almost like
you know?
it falls off, and then you get some more leadership. So I think it's important, that we, kind of train somebody, the next generation, man. I think you have to train the next generation.
Each
Now,
one teach one, yeah.
yeah, and one of the problems, I'll say this, and then we can do our close. But I think one of the problems now is that the kids now are used to having so much that they either want to be basketball players making $80 million a year. They want to be rappers making $80 million a year, or they want to be drug dealers making $80 million a year. And it's like, there's nothing else they want to do, and they, they don't realize that, hey, you need somebody to fix your faucet when it breaks. You need somebody to, to hand the mail out. But I was amazed at how many young Blacks now have never really had real jobs.
Well,
But you know what? That's an interesting thing. They used to have that take your kid to work situation. But we need to show these people, even as some of the people who have made it to these great heights, did very sometimes mundane and mediocre jobs on their way up. It's
Yeah.
Let me say something.
if you're a McDonald's manager, you're learning a lot of skills that can go into any industry.
Right. And let me that was the thing with me. I've done a lot of things, but because I was a manager, you can manage anything.
Yeah, you're right.
If you're that type of manager. But let me, the one thing that we have to understand. In fact, I developed a whole janitorial training system. I mean, tests, final exams, everything. Everybody that took my courses and stuff, they've gotten good jobs, became supervisors, man.
Business owners.
Right, business owners. I got a couple of them. But let me tell you something. In the book that I wrote, I got a textbook that I wrote, and I said in it, nobody raises their children to be a janitor. That's just something that you fall into. And just like you said, we had people at General Motors that cleaned 3-4 bathrooms a day, which was their job, and made $100,000 a year.
And sent kids to college and had a nice home.
But that's kind of like the car business. I know when I was in the car business, the owner would always come in. He said, "Look," he said, "now we know that this is where we all make our living, and nobody ever grows up and says, 'Hey, I want to be in the car business.' Nobody ever, as a kid, says, 'I want to manage a dealership, or I want to do this or do that.'" But a lot of people don't know that you have general managers in the car business that make $700,000-800,000 a year.
Right. Right.
You have sales managers that make $200,000, $250,000 a year. You have finance managers, that make. I had one of my last finance managers said, "Man," he said, "if I don't make 15 grand a month, I can't pay my bills." So a lot of times, we look at certain jobs and certain occupations that we may not have thought about getting into, but a lot of them you can make a pretty good living.
Right.
But nobody's ever said, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be a car salesman." Or I want to train people to open janitorial companies, But there's a lot of things that you can do, if you open your mind and make a ton of money, And don't even, CPAs now, young people, if they want to do something that's going to pay off, I'd say, be a CPA.
And let them know that they're not locked into just one thing. You're going to change careers 2 or 3 times during your life.
You should be. And when you're a manager, you can work in a lot of different, areas, a lot of different industries.
Right.
And somebody always needs good managers.
Right.
Because the boss needs somebody to watch the money and make sure the money keeps coming in. And
Robert, on that note, so many, there's a great number of Fortune 500 company CEOs that were at one time McDonald's managers. They went to Hamburger Institute and they learned the skills, and now they just got a bigger company to run,
L.A. Reid, Clive Davis, L.A. Reid, Clive Davis, Babyface, and there's one more. What do they all have in common besides being multi-millionaire label president?
Would they flip hamburgers?
No, they all sold cars.
Also cars, okay.
Okay.
John worked in the car business. Barry
All right,
Gordy
let's
Jr.
go, y'all.
Barry Gordy Jr. worked at Ford in a dealership.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They
so
don't-
they put us off.
yeah, yeah. So you never know what you can do, where it'll lead. So I think with that.
That's a good point, yeah.
Okay. Closing thoughts, Verl.
We gotta get busy. Get busy living or get busy dying.
Okay.
What they said in Shawshank.
Mike, any?
And Verl played in Shawshank. He had a part in Shawshank.
Yeah. He was an actor. Verl's an actor too.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the thing I want to say is that, with the Juneteenth, my family had been celebrating Juneteenth for a long time, but
Okay.
go to YouTube, look at the videos. They have a ton of how it started and what they're doing and the places that they had a ton of videos. Watch them. Watch them so that you understand, and watch them with the family. Some of them are 3-4. If you don't have 3 or 4 minutes in your day to watch this, then shame on you.
Right. And I would just say in closing that don't stop with the celebration. Let the celebration spur you to action.
Right. Very
Let the
true.
celebration spur you to action, and make sure that you bring somebody else along with you. Make sure
Right.
that you educate somebody, because that's the most important part. Because I think a lot of the younger generation now, they just haven't really been educated.
Each one teach one.
Yeah, each one reach one. Each one teach one. Yeah. So, well, with that, we'll say thank you for watching. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we do thank you for yours. And until next week, I can't say wear your mask anymore, but I'll say stay safe. All right. Good night.
Take care.